You're horrible.
I
You're
am a bad
absolutely
person.
horrible.
And we're live. I think that we went live as we were telling everybody that I'm a bad person. So that's good. They already know. Everybody already knows. I'm very excited today. Let me know in the chat if you can hear us. I'm pretty sure you can. I'm getting good at actually, monitoring my settings. Today we are going to have a talk with Dr. Darrel Ray. And Dr. Darrel Ray is somebody that I have been wanting to have on this channel for ever. We've been trying to connect and it just doesn't seem to work. We both have incredibly busy schedules and busy lives, but today's the day. Today's the day we finally did it. So before we get into it, because I know that he and I are going to have a lot to talk about, I wanted Darrel to have an opportunity to introduce himself and let you guys all know what he does, what he's involved in, what his programs are, and where you can find his work. So yeah, Darrel, I'll throw it to you, please.
Well, okay. Well, thanks for having me on here, Shannon, and thanks to all your listeners and viewers for joining us today. Because I hope we've got a lot of interesting information and maybe some insights that people can jump on and run with, and maybe help you and I in what we're passionate about, and in regards to mental health and Christian counseling and that kind of stuff. But I'm a psychologist by training. I'm retired right now, but I'm working my butt off more than I've ever worked.
Yes, you are.
And I keep thinking, didn't I retire so I wouldn't have to? But I'm having more fun. And through this whole coronavirus crisis, I'm seeing big opportunities to help people. And that's where I want to be. I always want to be where people need help. That's been my entire life, actually. And that's partly why I started Recovering from Religion back in 2009 to help people who are leaving religion, because I could look around and see that lots of organizations were getting you into religion, but there was nobody helping you get out. So we started Recovering from Religion in 2009, and it wasn't long after that I started seeing problems in the psychotherapy world with Christian counselors, and that's kind of bullshit. Kind of. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And then so in 2012, actually we started in 2011, but released in 2012, Secular Therapy Project. And I'm very happy, which vets therapists so that you are positive. If you go to one of our therapists, you're positive they are secular. They're not going to send you back to church. They're not going to say your atheism is causing your depression or any of that kind of stuff. And you can guarantee it, because we actually turn down 40% of all the applicants because they don't meet our criteria. They have to be licensed in their jurisdiction, they have to be secular, and they have to use evidence-based methods. And believe it or not, there are secular therapists that don't use evidence-based methods. Mm-hmm. So go figure. I mean, it's kind of like an atheist that believes there are ghosts. It makes no sense to me, but I've met a few. And you see that in therapy as well. So that consumes a lot of my time. Gail Jordan is the executive director of our of Recovering from Religion, and we've got an incredibly good board, and we've got some cool, really motivated people that help running organization. Todd Yoder runs our helpline, chat line, so you can call and talk to people. Real human beings will talk to you about your journey away from religion. And then Eric Wells, who I will be talking with when I finish with you, because he wanted me to do this mental health talk to our people tonight. He's running our local support groups, which we have about 30 groups across the United States and the world, actually, and volunteers. And we have volunteers in Germany and Belgium and Netherlands and United Kingdom and Australia. We have volunteers all over the world. We got like 128 volunteers, I think, and they're all helping people deal with religion, any religion, like Hinduism or Judaism or evangelical Christianity. It doesn't matter. We're here to help them. And so that's the long answer to your short question.
That was a perfect answer. It's really important to me that people in my audience know what the links that I put in the description of every single one of my videos and direct them to, like where that will lead them. So you being here is a unique opportunity for me to say, okay, like this is who the type of people that you're going to be talking to. This is the mission statement of where I'm sending you. These are the types of things that you can expect. It's not just a link in a description. There's people on the other end of that who are there to help you, and they're there to help you in this unique situation that you find yourself in. These are trained professionals. So this is an excellent opportunity for me to help you build trust with my audience, so that I know, because I find there's a lot of responsibility when you do something like this, because I bring, and people like me, bring people to the precipice where they realize, oh my gosh, like this might be what's causing me harm.
Right.
This thing that I've been engaging in might be what's actually harming me, and that's why I'm not getting better. What do I do now? So I think that I have a responsibility as a content creator who brings people to that point to tell them what their next steps are. And that's
Right.
where you existing is a massive benefit to me and to people, because I'm able to offer those as potential resources going forward. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to you, because before I even met you and we started interacting, that I was sending people to the Secular Therapy Project and Recovering from Religion. So thanks for doing what you do. It's important.
Well, you get extra beer and brownie points in the Flying Spaghetti Monster heaven then. So I'll just let you know.
Yes.
You don't.
That's my entire motivation.
That's
the only reason I do it. Nailed it.
Well, you do know, you don't know who I am, or maybe you do, but you do know that I'm the high priest of the Church of Flying Spaghetti Monster, right?
I did not. You're kidding. Are you really?
I am not fucking kidding. I am the, and there's only one of me, and it's always spelled with a capital T, the high priest of the Church of Flying Spaghetti Monster. I'm higher than the Pope, so just keep that in mind.
Oh, wow. I will start to watch myself a little bit more, than I didn't realize that I was in the presence of such divine greatness. Wow.
Well, when I say you get extra brownie points, I have the authority to give you those. So
you mean it. That's good to know. I appreciate that. No,
yeah,
no,
I'll
have the expectation that those are on their way then.
Yeah, but don't cross me, because I can cut your pasta off instantly.
Oh, that's even worse. I love pasta. Don't do that to me.
In the afterlife, of course.
Oh, okay. Well, then
in
fine.
the afterlife, not now.
Then fine. All right. So is there anything, are there any new projects that you guys are working on or rolling out? Is there anything that you're really excited about right now that you'd like to share with everyone?
Oh, I'm excited about what I'm going to tell you, and unfortunately, it's because of the coronavirus. Okay. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing, and that is that we have, for the last 3 years, we've got virtually doubling in size every year for 3 years straight.
Yeah.
That's the kind of demand, and we're getting more and more calls from ex-Muslims in Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, of all places, and we have to be very careful. We got some very specific protocols, speaking, of course, with Muslim majority countries, because it's just dangerous there. But the expansion has been gigantic, and we've got about 128 volunteers working, within their own time frame. So we can't answer every call, and we can't answer every chat, because we just don't have enough people. So my first plea is, if any of your viewers want to help us, just go to the recoveringfromreligion.org webpage and hit the volunteer button. Now, you mentioned something earlier. I want to be real clear.
Okay.
Our chat line agents are not professionals, but they are well trained.
Okay.
And you don't touch our clients unless you've gone through a pretty good training program. And doesn't take a long time. Most people said they can get through it in 4 hours, and then there's some practice stuff we require. But once you're through, you will have some skills that will really, really help you help other people. And that's the chat line helpline. And support groups, all those are headed by trained volunteers. And then on the other side is our professional support, and that is Secular Therapy Project. And those people have graduate training and licensing in mental health counseling, and might even have a PhD or a MD in psychiatry or whatever. But they are professionals. So, we have the peer support side. That's what we call the volunteer side, and then we have the professional support side within Recovering from Religion. They're two big, gigantic programs. I'm happy to report that we have 423 vetted therapists, and we have we're just that close to having 20,000 registered clients, people who have registered with us and are have looked for a therapist. So, and if you're a therapist watching this, get it, and you're secular and you're licensed. Now, some countries don't license, so that's okay. Just go ahead and apply. We'll look at your credentials. but we're in need of therapists in the United Kingdom, and New Zealand, and Australia, South Africa. We have therapists in all those places, but we need more therapists. And of course, we've got quite a few in Canada, and most of them are probably 350 of our therapists are all in the United States. We're always looking for more therapists.
Well, I hope people can answer that call for you, because it's important work that you guys are doing. And again, thank you for doing it. Is there anything else that you guys are expanding on before I completely monopolize your time talking about Christian counseling? Because that's what's going to happen. I warned you ahead of time.
Okay. Well, yeah, you asked that question. I went off on a tangent.
No. I want you to have as much time to tell everybody everything that they can know and need to know about the program. It's important that they do. But I'm being selfish.
Good news, bad news. A good news, bad news story. And then I went off on my own tangent. We are seeing such an increase in chats around the coronavirus. And it's not because I've got the virus. It's because my parents want to go to church, and I don't want to let them go to church. I'm a 16-year-old kid with some common sense. And what do I do? How do I stop my family from going to church? We have literally gotten those kind of chats just in the last week or so.
Yeah.
We've got other chats. My college closed down. Now I've got to go back and live with my fundamentalist religious family. I thought I'd escaped them because I was going to go to college and graduate and be gone, but now I'm financially dependent and I got to live with them. And what do I do? I mean, those are the kind of calls that we're starting to get, and it's and we need more volunteers to take those calls. So what it's led us to do is realize we need to help provide more mental health counseling, more mental health support for our own volunteers and for the community that we serve. So we have started, and it's not public yet. We're piloting it for a couple of weeks now. We're going to start a series of, we're going to call it Recovering from Religion, RFR, Recovering from Religion X, RFRX. Now, if you look at RFRX, it looks like a prescription, right?
Yeah.
Or it looks like TEDx.
Yeah. Both ways.
So it'll be RFRX, and it'll be to support anyone that belongs to our support groups, our local support groups. We'll have an online program. It's going to be called Online Programming, and we'll be talking about mental health issues. I don't know if you saw it, but I did a big interactive talk with Atheist United in Los Angeles a week and a half ago. And that led to a lot of discussions around mental health and what we can do during the coronavirus crisis. Because the fact is, we as human beings are not used to this kind of isolation.
No.
And it really cramps our style as a primate. So we need to learn some new skills, and hopefully this will get over. But in the meantime, how can we make this a more positive experience, an experience that helps us learn resilience and become more resilient? That's the real focus of what we're starting to do. And we hope to have that rolled out in the next few weeks. So we're giving real online support to people, and anybody's free. We never charge a dime for any of our services, except on the therapist side. We help you find it for free, but then you got to pay the therapist, of course. But everything we do is for free. And it's only possible because we've got some great donors that give us $5, $10, $20 a month, and that keeps us going. So of course, that's a subtle plea to give us some money if you've got any you want to get rid of. but we never ask anything of our people, and we are. It's just so rewarding. Our volunteers, I can't tell you how many times our volunteers have said, having this opportunity to help somebody else has helped me. It's therapeutic for me to talk to this kid who doesn't want to go back and live with his parents because of the university getting shut down. So anyway, that's our main focus and our main programming that's coming in the next few weeks.
Awesome.
And if you want to be a part of that, if you want to join it, then go look at Recover from Religion. Just Recover from Religion on meetup.com. And you can join the group closest to you, or really any group, we don't care. And then you'll get the announcements on when they're coming out. Or you can go to the chat line and chat in with our chat agents and ask how can I get invited to the community, the Recover from Religion community, and so I can see the mental health support. We don't want to open this up to the entire planet. well, first of all, we don't have the resources, and we want to funnel people through our approach, so we have some control over, the content that's going out. So I don't know. We may open it up to the public at some point in time, but we're not going to do TEDx where anybody can watch it yet. And
you'll never know what might happen though in the future. Though it may scale out later. So I've high hopes for you guys.
I think it will scale out, and in about 3 weeks, we're going to have a whole team of secular therapists from the Secular Therapy Project continuing. I'm getting it started, but I can't possibly do all this. It's just too much work and too much time. And so I'm going to hand it off to a team, and they're going to start providing this on a regular basis, probably maybe weekly. We will have some kind of mental health support, at least for the duration of the isolation that we're in right now.
Oh, that's so great. Like I'm contributing to in my small way myself. I've been attempting to just put out more content, and I stopped charging my patrons until we're done, just so that people have more to engage with and interact with during this time.
Right.
And I'm actually going to go on Stated Clearly, John Perry's channel, this weekend, just to talk about, I've been doing some research on the effects of isolation and access to medication and therapy, and being locked in the house with your children, suddenly having to work from home and readjust, like all of the effects that people don't take into account, the effects of fear and dealing with fear and anxiety while in isolation, and those sort of adjustment routines. And so I'm actually going to go have a chat with John Perry on
You're hitting on all the right subjects.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I know a couple things. I know a few things. Well, I'm glad that you're.
No, I'm okay with. Let's talk about Christian counseling. I want to start off. I want to start off by saying what I've said to you before. I've said it personally, and you are amazing. You are awesome.
Thanks.
You are. Your series on Christian counseling blew me away. I sat there and watched it and think, who the hell is this person?
I'm Shannon. Hi.
Well, I knew who you were, but wow, I thought, why have we not interacted more? Because you are right in the middle of what we're interested in, and so
I was blown away when you guys shared it on the the Recovering from Religion Facebook page. I cried.
Yeah.
I was like, Darrel Ray saw my video and he put it on the Facebook. I was so I was like, maybe people will see it now.
You'll be surprised. You may not be surprised, but I don't think it was me that shared that. I think it was our social media team that shared it.
Oh wow.
We have a kick-ass social media team, both for Secular Therapy Project and for Recovering from Religion. And when they see good stuff, they don't ask me. They just, who am I? They just put that shit up there, and they I couldn't possibly do all this without 128 people helping. This could not happen. So I am one of 128 volunteers. So that's the important thing.
Awesome.
These folks they're just. I am so privileged to have such incredible people to work with, and I know I am. I'm very privileged to have that.
Well, it does mean a lot to me. Thank you. I appreciate it, because it's something that's very close to my heart, because it does cause so much damage, and there's a lot of people who are in my viewership that one of the reasons that they're here is because they've been affected. Like, I get so many emails. I had no idea how prevalent it was and how damaging it was. And I get emails and DMs and messages and tweets and Facebook messages constantly with these horrifying stories, just horrifying stories of people who have spent their life seeking help from the people that they trusted to help them, that only ended up getting damaged worse because they went to somebody who had the artifice of being a counselor or a mental health professional, but was actually detrimental and was using unproven methods and wasn't interested in their mental health, was interested in continuing their indoctrination at their own peril at times in order to retain them as part of a congregation or a larger group or demographic. So you helping me communicate why these types of things are damaging to my audience, maybe in a better, more educated way than I can. I mean, I'm just some moron with a bachelor's degree from Nova Scotia, but I mean, but I'm so deep into it because it's so prevalent. And there's just, like, we talked about this with you just a little bit before we went on. I didn't realize just how prevalent this religious war on the sciences surrounding psychology, psychiatry, and counseling was until I started becoming more of an activist and more of a public speaker. And it's baffling to me because when religious people misrepresent biology, chemistry, other sciences, geology, you see those scientists stepping to the forefront explaining, hey, like, this is crap. They're presenting pseudoscience as science. This is the actual science. That, like, this is all wrong. Here's the stuff that's right. But I don't see it as much in the mental health fields, and it's so much more important to me because
Right.
these are who people are, but I just don't see it. So I don't know. What would you say to that?
Well,
We'll start with just that last point that I meant. Like, why don't you think there's more people screaming?
and I think that goes back to a very foundational roots of this culture, and I don't mean just U.S. I mean Canadian and United Kingdom culture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just replete with religion, and we've been told as a psychologist, I definitely was told this, or the message is there. Maybe nobody comes right out and says it, but the message is don't challenge people's religious beliefs.
Yeah.
And it said you have to respect people's religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to challenge that belief. That's a belief that I want to challenge. I want to challenge that you have to respect anybody's beliefs. Now, I think you can respect the person without respecting the beliefs, and being disrespectful isn't a good therapeutic technique by a long shot. So I think psychologists and social workers have been told don't challenge people's religious beliefs. And so they're afraid to step out and say, that's a crazy idea. Let's not do that. Here's the other side of the coin. And this is just as much a part of the equation, Shannon. That is so many social workers and psychologists are themselves still harboring religious ideas, supernatural ideas.
Right.
Well, if I'm a religionist, if I still believe in some, even if it's New Age kind of bullshit, if I believe in that, then challenging somebody else's belief means I have to challenge my own.
Right.
To fully make that full cycle. And I see religious therapists, they don't want to cause any waves by helping with good technique, helping therapists or helping clients challenge their religious beliefs, because they don't want to have to challenge them themselves.
Yeah.
It's how do you, it's a biblical thing, take the mote out of your own eye, a log out of your own eye before you try to take the mote out of another person's eye. And I don't quote the Bible very often, but that piece seems to fit here. As a therapist, if you can't challenge your own supernatural beliefs, you're probably not going to be able to challenge other people's.
Yeah, I thought, from my perspective, and I could be wrong on this is just what I'm gleaning as I go through this journey of the self-flagellation that I apparently decided that I wanted to go on, is that it seems as though it has a great deal also to do with taboos, perceived virtue, and social consequence. So it's not any therapist or counselor's job to tell you what religion you should or shouldn't be, or if you should have none at all. That's just not their job. Their job is to guide you through introspective processes so that you can come out better through the process and figure out internally what needs to be worked on, where sources of stress, anxiety, and other sort of deleterious affect are coming from. But if one of those things is religion, therapists are reticent to bring it up, and counselors are reticent to bring it up or even allow you or encourage you to explore it. Because if they allow or encourage you to explore that, then that's tantamount to questioning it. And if you encourage somebody to question it, it's seen as though you're some sort of heretic or you're not virtuous, even though that may legitimately be the source of damage. And so you're cutting yourself off from an entire avenue of therapeutic opportunity in order to prevent yourself from negative consequences from the perception of how you conduct that therapy. And perhaps in the public too, when it comes to things that are just being wholly misrepresented. Like there's entire organizations and institutions like ACBC and the NCCA that are just built around false science that's taught in universities, right? Like taught in the Master's University and at Liberty University. They teach these courses as though they're mental health courses and give you university credits to get these certifications. And nobody wants to stand up and say, you know, you can't do that. That's wrong. You're using false science, because it seems as though they're intervening in somebody's right to be religious as an absolute right. When really all they're doing is saying you're creating the artifice of mental health and being a mental health professional in order to, you know, start a business where you're preying on people, utilizing false methodologies that like you wouldn't do that with a doctor. Sorry, I could ramble on forever. There's probably a lot more you can respond to.
Well, no, that's it. Yeah, I'm glad you got an opinion on this.
I know. It's hard to figure out what I think. I know. I should be less subtle.
I think your whole package is accurate. I mean, seriously, I couldn't find any fault in what I just said now and what you've said at other times that I've watched. I wrote for your going back to a book I wrote back in 2009, published The God Virus. The last couple chapters of The God Virus, I talk about how religion tries to take and use science.
Yeah.
And I look at that chapter. I say I wrote that 12 years ago, probably. You know, I was writing in 2008. And I look around right now, and that is exactly what religion's doing in psychology. Mm-hmm. They're trying to take on the mantle of science to propagate their own God virus, their own delusional beliefs about the supernatural. So it's important for us. I mean, we see this. I mean, look at Scientology. The very name says something there, right? Mm. Or look at the Church of Christ Scientists. Why would they want to use the term science unless they were trying to usurp science for their own benefit?
Exactly.
We see this all over the place, and it's just a way that religion knows that science is a direct challenge to the supernaturals that they believe in.
Yeah.
So they have to be very careful. And so the way they do it is they say, well, let's just make sure that people never get exposed to the real science, but we'll call it science at Liberty University and teach people, you know, at Regents University or wherever, this, quote, Christian science.
Yeah.
Now, they don't call it Christian science like the Christian Scientists.
They call it Christian psychology.
They call it Christian psychology, exactly. And I mean, how do you?
What the fuck is that? There's no such thing as Christian biology. Why would there be Christian psychology? Right. There's no Christian chemistry.
Right. Well, I don't know. There's Christian virology and biology, I think,
Stop
right now.
It.
Well, of course. I mean, when you go to church and they say that our church will save you and keep the germs away, that sounds to me like Christian virology. So
yeah, it seems to me that they appropriate the components that they're able to easily comport with their belief system. Right. So they have just enough of the actual science to represent it as though they're the same, and it's just an interpretation issue. So like they'll create their own section of the science and they'll push themselves to the side and say, this is our version of the science. And they'll present it as just as legitimate, and they'll steal components that they can easily comport with what they believe, leave out the parts that they don't, or bastardize them entirely till they aren't even representative of what they originally were. And then they'll say, well, you guys are just interpreting it this way, and we're interpreting it this way. And they're counting on the fact that people don't understand how the actual research and interpretation of the research is done, so that people can just point to it and say, well, we have scientists too, and they find different things. And it's just how you look at it. You guys interpret it this way, we interpret it this way, when they don't realize whole cloth portions of it have either been entirely changed or removed or just aren't accounted for at all.
It's not any different than what they're doing with creation science. Really.
Yeah,
that's the same thing. It's the same technique of bait and switch, basically.
Yeah.
But the deeper issue is, what's the problem with this? And that is that I think you and I both have talked about this. It takes the trauma that religion causes and adds insult to injury to that. Because you're coming in, let's say that you're depressed, and part of the depression may be that you've been told since you were a child that you're a worthless piece of shit, you're no good, your body's your enemy, you shouldn't masturbate, shouldn't have sex. I mean, all the should nots.
Yeah.
And you're feeling bad because you're a normal you're a normal human being with normal drives. And then so you're at odds with your own body, with your own sexuality. And so you go to a Christian counselor, and what do? They pile more guilt and shame on you. Well, you haven't prayed enough. You haven't gone back to church. You haven't read enough the Bible. You haven't confessed your sins. I mean, it's unrelenting once you're in that bubble, and you can't. So and Shannon, we're seeing a lot of manifestations in the clients that come to us of what we call religious trauma syndrome, RTS. And I'm not saying everybody that's been through a church has been traumatized.
Right.
I am saying there's a hell of a lot of symptoms that we're seeing as psychologists and therapists that are directly related to people's childhood upbringing within a church setting. And when you get beaten for being caught masturbating, when you get isolated from all your friends for a week because you didn't get your Bible verses memorized, that kind of stuff, or worse, you got kicked out of your home because you don't believe the Mormon bullshit anymore and you're 15 years old and homeless. So that has to cause trauma. Well, go to a Christian counselor, and so many of these people are saying, you can't be a gay child in my house. I'm going to send you to a Christian counselor to get you cured, and they do all that stuff, that conversion therapy. Then how the trauma is going to be multiplied, and it's very difficult.
They're affirming the position of your abuser.
Absolutely.
In order to pull you back into a situation where you continue to be abused. They're putting you in a situation where they're further molding you into complacency rather than acknowledging that this is something that happened external to you for ridiculous reasons.
Yeah. Because to admit it is to admit that the whole house of cards needs to be examined.
Right.
And fall.
And nobody wants to do that. Because by being religious, somehow you're just imbued with this perception of virtue. Just by saying, I'm a godly person, I believe in God, I pray, whatever. Your people attribute you with virtue automatically, just for espousing that position, without actually analyzing what your real positions on how to interact with people and how to treat each other and how you treat the people around you and what your perceptions are and how other people should interact and what you do about it. None of that's taken into account. You're just automatically attributed that until you give people a reason not to. And it's frustrating to me because so many people, and I talk to them all the time, are so upset, so frustrated, and have lost so much and are still internalizing things that happen to them because they've been taught that, like, as most religions, you're taught you're from birth, there's something wrong with you. Like, you were born a sinner. Right. There's something wrong. Everybody has a spectrum of how shitty they are, and it's just a matter of where you fall on the spectrum. And everything that happens to you is entirely a result of how hard you work to not fall on that shitty spectrum. And other people are going to tell you the things that place you in certain points on this spectrum without giving you valid justifications for it, aside from it was mandated by a book that a million people interpret a different way. Like, that's not healthy. And
it's not just Christian. I mean, it's Islam does just as much, and Hinduism just and let's not forget, Buddhism does too. Don't let anybody tell you Buddhism is not a religion. Maybe in California it's not a religion, but everywhere else on the planet it is. And it's very misogynistic. Yeah. I mean, their whole premise is that women, girls, females, whatever, cannot make it into nirvana near as easily as men can. And the sexual abuse and the trauma of 9-year-old boys being forced into a monastery and stay the rest of their life while they're being sexually abused by other monks. There's so much what I want to say is it's the overarching theme, whether it's Buddhism or Catholicism or Mormonism, Islam, it doesn't matter. The same techniques are being used in all of these religions. And I think what I've seen is once people realize, first recovery from religion meeting I ever had was about 3 miles from my house at an IHOP, in the back room of an IHOP restaurant.
Oh, wow.
11 people show up, and I only knew one of them. And the other 10 people, I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know who these people are, but they all had the same problem. And we just asked how many people, I asked 2 questions. How many of you were hurt by religion? And then we talked about that. And now, how have you benefited by leaving religion? 3 hours later, they were kicking us out of the restaurant because they were closing it. So what I learned in that very first meeting was the need for people to get this off their chest and talk about how religion had traumatized and hurt them. Now, within some of those meetings that I had subsequent, I had probably a half a dozen people in there. They tell their stories, and half a dozen people in the context of their stories talked about, my parents sent me to a religious counselor. My parents sent me to my minister or my priest to get counseling. I should have been sent to a psychologist, but for my depression or for my suicide ideation or for my cutting myself, no, let's just send them to the priest who's never studied a psychology book in his life. So yeah. I can go on.
Those religious counselors, to my mind, for everything I've come across, they're not there to make you a better version of yourself or okay. They're there to manipulate you into behaving in accordance to a set of mandated standards so that you're no longer trouble, so that you're back in line, so that you're no longer questioning things, so that the aspect of you that has been deemed unacceptable can be manipulated and abused into oblivion until you can't even be a version of yourself anymore. And that's what they're for. That is what they seem to be for. And how? Like, no mental health professional. And I don't understand why it's okay. I don't understand why people are allowed to charge money to do this to people. Like, they're allowed to charge money to do this to people. Like, I looked up one of these guys. He makes $800,000 a year. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. Like, this guy's an idiot. He's a moron. He can barely speak. And he makes $800,000 a year down in Florida, teaching people how to hate themselves but shut up about it. That's what they do. You just still hate yourself, but here's how you can just shut the hell up about it so that you're not affecting other people as much anymore. And just, here's ways to pretend to be happy even though you aren't. It fucking makes me mad.
The people that are watching you and I talk right now, some of those people have suffered from the very thing we're talking about, and I'm very interested in helping them find the resources they need to get away from that, or to deal with what they got programmed in their childhood or from their training in religion or what some Christian counselor did to them. I don't care where it came from, until you deal with it and move on from that, you're going to continually be haunted, to use a weird word, I guess, haunted by this terrible training that you got, this terrible psychology. And it is a psychology in a way, Shannon. There is a Christian psychology in how it uses your mind and your brain and your natural fears, your natural inclinations, your fear of death. All these things are used within the psychology of Christian theology. So of course, I'm not using it in psychology in a scientific term, but we have a psychology inside of our head. And if somebody comes to me and says, for example, don't look down now, Darrel, but there's a snake under your desk. I'm probably going to have a response to that. And that's a very normal, very natural response. Even if there's not, there probably isn't, of course. My brain concocts a picture and says, oh my gosh, I better get out of here. And that's what religion does. It takes advantage of the psychology that's inside our own head. And we naturally have fears, we naturally have anxieties. And the psychology says, let's let's grab those and use them for our own purposes. And that therein lies the quote Christian psychology. It's an insidious psychology for sure.
Yeah, because they define what's good, and then society accepts what's good, and then most people want to comport to that predetermined, although arbitrary, determination of what is good. And they want to have, they want social acceptance, they want to retain group membership, they want parental approval. All of these things are baked into it and are incredibly damaging, and they lead towards certain aspects of behavioral control. And you may seem okay if you're existing within the paradigm, but anybody who deviates from that paradigm, who doesn't already naturally comport to the standard just innately, which I would argue is probably a minimal if number, if there really are any at all. But anybody who deviates from those standards is like abused or manipulated into getting back in line, to the point that some people are just so miserable with life itself because they're not able to express who they are or explore who they are, or constantly told that who they are isn't acceptable, that they don't know where to turn. And when they do turn to somebody, they turn to a religious counselor or a therapist who just reinforces all of the things that are damaging them to begin with.
Right.
And it perpetuates a cycle that follows them throughout their whole entire life. And we as a society look at that and go, you know what? Don't mess with it. Don't mess with it. You're not allowed to question religion. That's their personal choice. Yeah, sure. I'm not trying to stop them from making that choice, but I'm trying to tell them there are alternatives. And you know what? Just like you're telling me that I can't question it, you can't stop me from telling them if they're willing to listen. Because holy hell, like there's other ways to be. You can be happy. You could at least find a road to a better version of happiness, where you're not consistently questioning the attributes of yourself that other people tell you should make you miserable.
Right. And I think we've talked about Christian counselors, and I think we're in very deep agreement that they don't have any training to deal with things like depression or borderline personality disorder or any kind of stress. They wouldn't even have and they probably, you know, your problem is you've got too much Satan in you.
Or demons.
It's
probably a demon. It's always
demon, something like that. So that's the danger. They're treating something they have no expertise in training. What I want to do is I want to point people in the right direction. I want them to understand, when you do go look for help, here's what you look for. Because the average person on the street, the average viewer of what we're talking about right now, probably does not know what dialectical behavioral therapy is. They probably don't know what the elements that make cognitive behavioral therapy successful, or how you treat depression, you know, with mindfulness or something like that. These words are bannered about. I know lots of people who will say, oh yeah, dialectical or cognitive behavioral. They don't know what they're talking about. They haven't been to college. They haven't been to graduate school. They haven't taken a course in it. So what I want people to realize is, when you go look for a therapist, look for a well-trained therapist that can validate. They will use secular methodologies, and the most secular, the most basic of all methodologies is cognitive behavioral therapy. It's the baseline. And if a therapist isn't well-trained in that, don't even talk to them. If they're trained in Adlerian or Freudian bullshit, there's no evidence for that. So stick with the bottom line. If you go and talk to a therapist, before you even meet them, email them and say, do you use cognitive behavioral therapy? Do you use dialectical behavioral therapy? Do you know how to teach them? You know, whatever. And I can share with you these guidelines, Shannon, if you want. You don't have to come to Second Therapy Project to find a therapist. You can go anywhere you want, but you need to follow some basic guidelines about who is truly secular. Because there's a lot of therapists out there that they may not go to church. They might not even be, they may even be atheists, but they're not well trained and they're not using evidence-based methods. So you need to make sure you're seeing some, and it is your perfect right as a client to evaluate your therapist before you commit, because it's your money, it's your time, it's your fucking life. So take responsibility for making sure you're getting a therapist that knows what they're talking about. And I guarantee you'll be a whole lot better off than you will be with a Christian counselor or a poorly trained counselor.
Yeah.
Yeah, remind me, and I'll give you those guidelines, and you can just keep them in your back pocket.
Oh, that'd be great, and I can put them. Is there a link to them on the website? Because I can just put it right in the description of the video.
No, we don't have a link on the website. It's just a page of.
Okay, if you could send them to me, that would be awesome, and I'll find a way to share.
I will.
Yeah, that would be very, very cool. Because I'll likely use them in a future video, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, well, if you put them up and somewhere on the web, we'll link back to it. We'll link you up.
I'll probably use them in a video because that's good information.
Yeah.
People are starting to ask questions. Is it okay if I ask you some of the questions that I see in this side chat?
Right. As long as they don't ask what I'm wearing below the waist.
Everybody knows YouTubers don't wear pants. It's a rule. Everybody already knows.
Okay. That's all right.
So it seems that the secular communities lag behind those of religious due to centuries of religious history. Can you ask, how can atheism build a community belonging that can rival that of religious belonging?
Oh man, I could do an entire episode on that alone, Shannon. I am one of the founders of the Oasis here in Kansas City, which is similar to secular Sunday Assembly. And I have been into community building with the atheist communities for 11 years, basically. And what we have seen, I will speak to this as a participant and as somebody who's actively building community in Kansas City, where I live. And it's the answer to that person's question. What I see over and over again is atheists say there's no atheist community in my town or my city, which is probably true if you live in, Boise, Idaho, or somewhere like that. But in Kansas City, we've got 1,000 people registered on our various secular sites. And if I go to, until the coronavirus came, every Sunday at 11 o'clock, we would have anywhere from 100 to 250 people show up for a great program here in Kansas City, and they're almost all atheists. And we'll have Wednesday night meetings, and they have no Bible study associated with them. They'll have good wine, though.
I'll be there. Love good wine.
And they have family-friendly Friday nights where children can come with their parents, and we have maybe on average 20 activities a month within Oasis, and they're all secular. There's no religious. There's all that stuff is not a part of what we do. So I'm very proud of the Kansas City Oasis and what we've done here to build atheist community. Now, we don't call it atheist community. We even have some religious people come to Oasis because we're very open. We're very loose, but don't be proselytizing. Don't say, God did this or that bullshit, because, well, you probably will be asked to leave. Yeah. We're not into that. We have good science talks. We have good philosophy talks. We have good community service. We go out and clean people's yards and mow their lawn, and we feed the homeless every Monday night. I mean, we do a lot of cool stuff. And I'm seeing the same thing in Sunday Assembly. So the answer to the question is, it can be done. Here's the problem. It's a lot of work. And if you're not committed to the work, then it's probably not going to happen. That church down the street did not start without a hell of a lot of work. It's just as much work to start an atheist community as a religious community. Now, granted, they've got a little head start, and they've got some techniques, and they got fear and shame and guilt to work on. We don't have that. But as the high priest of the Church of Light Spirit Monster, I have a way to reward you in the next life. So you can always use me as your justification for starting community.
No, I know.
Whoever that
I'm the
was.
High Priestess of the Church of Sexual Humanism, also. So
I know you are. I know you are.
So,
and
you're also in the presence of deistic royalty. Just want to make sure that you're recognizing that. It's very important.
Yeah. And if it's got to do with sex, then we're good, okay?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the only rules in our church are be good to each other and don't be an asshole. That's literally the only rules.
All right, there you
only
go.
rules in the church. If anybody else has any questions, make sure you at me, because it's difficult for me to follow along the chat. Pardon me if you don't have me added. So at Shannon Q. And one of the things that I wanted to contribute to that is that, like you touched on it, is that they already have infrastructure built, like thousands of years worth of infrastructure. And people who are atheists aren't they don't have a reason to congregate. right? So like we're not going together to celebrate our atheism. Like churches have it built in. This is the day when we must gather together for X reason. Atheists don't have that built into atheism. So like you have to create reasons, you have to generate reasons, and that's why it's hard work. And
Yes.
online communities are a good way to start doing that and connect and find people.
And the fact is, here's why do so many people who no longer believe, why do they stay in church? Because of the social component.
Right.
We are such social primates. I mean, we are super social. The only animals that are probably more social than us are ants, or something like that.
Yeah.
But between, bonobos and humans, we're probably the most social creatures on this planet. Maybe you could add dolphins or something in there. But we have to have social contact. And what's going on is churches are taking advantage of that. Well, I don't know why we can't take advantage of it too. And when I hear this, I hear people saying, well, organizing atheists is like herding cats. I call bullshit on that every time. That pisses me off. When people say that, they're humans. Atheists are humans just like anybody else, and they will follow good leadership. And there are people that are doing good leadership in the secular community, and we see the results in the communities that they're building. So you have to lead atheists a little different than you lead Christians. I mean, you don't have
don't manipulate and abuse them into following you.
Right.
You give them good reasons.
When I go to Oasis on a Sunday morning or I go to a Sunday assembly, I'm not being manipulated into coming there. I'm being, that's a cool singer, I want to go hear him sing. Or that's a cool topic, I want to go hear that.
Right.
It's an attraction thing rather than a fear thing or a shame or guilt thing.
Yeah.
We need to provide attractive ideas and reasons for going to groups. And then it follows. I mean, like I said, 20 different events a month. Having, Friday night at the pub and Wednesday night meals together and all this stuff. We have twice a month groups that just meet. They're like, churches have these home groups that meet. Churches do that. Well, we said, well, let's do that too. So we've got these groups that meet in people's homes. It'd be 10 people twice a month, and they just sit around and talk about a particular subject related to secularism. And it's gigantic. It can be anything in science, anything in philosophy. That's a pretty big universe of things to talk about.
Yeah, and you're so open. You're able to explore conversations in whatever direction they lead you to, which is one of the most beautiful things I find with this community. As I wander around, I've learned so much in the past 2 years from engaging with such a wide variety of people who have differing perspectives and fields of expertise. And I'm not encumbered by a mental scaffolding that forces me to comport whatever I hear to a pre-existing or predetermined perspective on the world. I'm allowed to open myself up every time I hear something new. I'm allowed to explore what that means and what I may have to change and what I may be able to keep and what's reinforced. And it's so freeing and it's so wonderful. And so, so that there's lots of opportunities to do these things, and there's lots of beautiful people who are looking for these communities, and there's a myriad of ways to find them. You just have to invest yourself. Sometimes it's work. So I agree with you.
Well, let me give the questioner one little hint of what they can do, and this is purely selfish, of course. You can go to Recover from Religion, hit the volunteer button, and volunteer to start a local group support. We call them support groups in your community. And we'll provide all the training. We'll provide the materials. We'll do all sorts of stuff to help you get started. We'll even pay for your damn meetup site. You don't even have to pay for your meetup site.
That's a good offer.
Yeah, and Eric Wells will get you all up to speed. And you can even get started now during the 2020 coronavirus crisis. You can get started now because we're even offering people the option of using our Zoom accounts. We own 2 Zoom accounts, and we'll buy as many Zoom accounts as we need for local groups to meet online. So there's absolutely no reason to not be getting involved in creating community, because what we see is in our meetup groups, people come because they want to talk about leaving religion. But after 2 or 3 times of coming to our meetings, they say, well, I'm ready to go be a secular activist, or I'm ready to go where's the next group to go to? And we'll point them to the secular group or the atheist group or the free thought group in the local area. We are a feeder for the entire secular community. We feed thousands of people into the secular community every year through our local support group.
That's an awesome idea. I say all the time, you should be the change that you want to see in the world. And that's a good way to start. Everybody, a lot of people go, well, how come? Well, and
you don't
provide a solution. You can be part of the reason that how come isn't a question anymore. So
exactly.
I know that's not necessarily for everybody, but for anybody
you don't have to be a therapist.
Motivated.
You don't have to be a therapist or a psychologist, or you don't have to be anything. You can just be a person that wants to help people.
Yeah.
We will train you in how to do that. Anybody can do what we're doing. Peer support is just that. It's peer support. So.
Cool. I got a question from a fellow Nova Scotian. There's at least 2 of us
All
that
right.
are atheists here.
All right.
Chadwick. Are you able to speak more about emergent atheist groups and the conflict that comes with approaching groups given social anxiety as a symptom? So that's interesting because there's a lot of atheists.
Say that again. Say that again. I didn't.
Read the question. Scroll back up to find it.
Okay.
Are you able to speak more about emergent atheist groups and the conflict that comes with approaching given groups, given that if you have social anxiety as a symptom?
Yes. Okay. We've kind of, I almost made a study of this, and there's several of us that have. I think in the atheist community, we have a higher proportion of people with social anxiety than the average bear. I mean, I bet, well, I don't know. It's hard to assess this stuff, but we definitely have our share, and maybe we've got more than our share. I would do this. First of all, we are very aware of that in Oasis, and we try to make sure that people with anxieties are welcome, aren't felt like they are forced to interact if they don't want to. If you want to step by your side and eat the donut all morning, that's fine, and we don't care. But the other side of that coin is if you're a person with social anxieties, I would contact the leader of the group or one of the co-leaders of the group and say, I have a lot of social anxiety. I really want to do this, but I need support. And I just want to let you know. And then make a connection with the leader. And then when you show up, the leader will be much more sensitive to of that behavior pattern, of being reticent or to engage. And perhaps that'll help everybody, because you can't expect people to read your mind, and you can't expect them to just fall into what makes you comfortable when you haven't told them. So there's kind of a two-way street here. Now, I think we need to do a better job as atheists and secularists of attending to people who are neuroatypical.
Yeah.
I mean, and we have a lot of people who are neuroatypical, and also minorities and people of color. I mean, all sorts of things. We have the potential to do a hell of a lot better than any church on this planet. But we're still programmed in some ways with the stuff behind us, our own religious background, or the culture that's so racist and so sexist and so misogynistic. We have to kind of pay attention, be mindful of our own training and maybe ideas that we need to still be challenging. So yeah, I don't know. It's a long answer to that question.
That's a really good answer, because a lot of people's criticism of the atheist community as a whole, and I'm just going to read Melissa's super chat really quickly, and then I do want to get into this. It's Hi, Melissa, by the way. I love Melissa. She's here all the time. She's the best supporter. Pseudopsychology is cringy. Spread the awareness. Thanks, Melissa. But yeah, a lot of people's criticism of atheist communities as a whole is they see them as kind of like old boys clubs that are exclusionary and are sort of like anti-SJWs, anti-Me Too, like really, but they don't realize that there's such and it's emerging now. There's like a breadth of people who are like, hey, we are LGBTQIA inclusive. We are, all gender inclusive. We are like all background inclusive, all cultures, all races, all identities. We want diversity. Like it is a necessity to us because we want to expand our perspectives. So another thing that you can do is if you see creators or if you see speakers or if you see leaders or if you see groups that are fostering that type of diversity, throw some support behind them, encourage them, direct other people towards them, so that they can grow, and as they grow they can help build communities, and you can be a part of helping that happen, because you can change by where you throw your support.
10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I really got involved in the secular community here in Kansas City, it was all a bunch of old white guys. That's all it seemed to be. There was like one woman leading one group, and it wasn't very successful. But I have seen that morph and change, evolve dramatically, to the point now that probably 4 out of 5 of all the leaders in all the secular groups, and we have a lot of secular groups and split offs here, are female. So women pretty much have taken over the leadership of the secular community here in Kansas City. I'm extremely proud of that. I think that is the way we need to go. I don't think we're as diverse as we should be with respect to people of color, and we are, however, pretty diverse, I think, with people who are neuroatypical. I see a lot of that. I like that. So I'm not saying we're perfect. We have ways to go, but that old white guy piece, and I'm an old white guy.
Nah.
I know. Well, I am 39, so that makes me old, I guess.
Oh, just 10 years older than me. Weird.
All right.
What a coincidence.
So yeah, there's so much we could be doing, but I do see, and I look around, I look at the free thought groups in Florida, and I see a lot of diverse leadership there, and I see diverse leadership in Atheist United in California. I interact. I'm an organizational psychologist, so part of my career, not part, a whole lot of my career, was working with executives and boards of directors and nonprofits. I worked with, over my 40 years, probably, I don't know, hundreds of boards of directors and stuff. And, in the corporate world, it's very white male, and it's not improved a whole lot in some places. But I'm seeing that change dramatically as secular groups are becoming more organized and more official, and they're becoming 501c3s with legal status. I mean, you can't deny that the entire atheist movement was started by a woman, Madalyn Murray O'Hair. And Annie Laurie Gaylor is one of the key leaders in the whole movement with Freedom from Religion Foundation. So we have a deep roots of non-white male leadership. And we're seeing changes. I mean, Mandisa Thomas is doing phenomenal work with Black
great.
Non-Believers. One of my favorite people on the whole planet. Yeah, you should. Have you had her on the show?
To her. I don't know her, but I watch her all the time. I think she's just she's a firebox. I just love her.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Tell her Darrel sent you.
I'll use your name to get my foot in the door so I can talk to her.
I'm sure she would talk to you in a heartbeat. She's an amazing. She's a bundle of energy. I don't know how she does it all.
And I think the more people realize too that people who represent them are available, like the more people will start to congregate, because people who didn't see themselves represented maybe just weren't engaging. And the more that people that they, like I'm a bisexual woman, so that's like people maybe didn't see somebody like me before engaging in these types of conversations and going to conferences, and now they do, and they're like, oh hey, or they didn't see somebody who is a mental health advocate that was looked like them, and they're like, oh now hey there is, right? And there's lots of other people in the community who are starting to come up, and as you find them, just like I said, throw support their way so that they can help build those communities so that more people can find them and realize that, hey, I thought I wasn't represented. I am. I just didn't realize that not the wrong people, but that's a horrible way to put it. It's just the only one type of person has been getting the focus. And, that's nobody's fault, I don't think. I just think that that's kind of the way that people consume media and these things, but it's changing. The point is it's changing, and it's dramatically changing. People just need to be aware that it is.
What I'm loving, and I've seen this in a whole lot of the groups I interact with, from California to New York City is that people are starting to come out and be open about who they are. If you're bisexual, they're open about that. Yeah. If you're transitioning, you're transsexual or whatever, you're open about that. If you're a black atheist, you're open about that. It's like that campaign they had a few years ago, come out as an atheist or be secular. And I think be who you are sexually. For example, I was shocked. If I look back, wow, I'm shocked at how many polyamorous people attend Oasis.
Yeah.
I would guess up to 20-25% of the people that come every Sunday to Oasis are polyamorous. And, most of the rest of the people that come are friendly, polyamory friendly, and may not be themselves, but they don't have any problems with it. So being out, we've had a whole panel discussion on all, of other ways of being sexual. And that was the second best attended meeting we've ever had.
Bet. I bet.
We had 240 people showed up for that.
Wow.
It was a panel discussion with a person that was a swinger, two people that were polyamorous, one person that was solo poly, and they ranged in age from 29 to 68 and it were male and female both. It was an amazing panel discussion, but to see all these people come out to hear this, that tells everybody else you are welcome in our community.
Yeah. We're
not only saying you're welcome, but we're having people up front that represent a wide range of sexualities.
Yeah.
And we've had I sound like I'm bragging about Oasis, and I fucking am.
That's fine.
It's not just Oasis. It's that we can create community, and I'm excited to see it happening in my town, but it can be happening, and it is happening at a lot of other towns. Like I said, I talked to Atheist United last week, and we had 50. It was an online thing. We had 50 people show up, and they're growing, and they're doing all sorts of charity work inside the Los Angeles area. But it's happening in Portland. It's happening in Nashville, Tennessee. They've got a great Sunday assembly there. They've had a long-term free thought group in Atlanta that has hundreds and hundreds of people doing all sorts of good stuff. The Black non-believers have got new chapters all over the nation. It's growing. And I think it's growing in a way that we don't see it. We don't recognize it. But it's there.
Lots of boots on the ground stuff that isn't just, public.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah. All right. I've already kept you past when I told you I would keep you, so I'm sorry. I'm notorious for that.
I have to
you have to leave?
Oh, yeah, I have to get going. I got to ready for my next thing.
I know. I'm only 10 minutes over. That was really good for me. So I think actually I deserve some credit, to be fair.
You get full credit and more pasta when you get to heaven.
Yes,
so there you go.
Fantastic. All right.
Thank you.
Darrel, tell everybody again, in case they came late, where they can find you, and then
Well, yeah, they can. Number one, they can go get my books, The God Virus or Sex and God, which I love to talk about sex, of course. Either book on Amazon, or they can go to recoverfromreligion.org and find out all the resources we have. We have thousands of pages of resources categorized by subject. If you're an ex-Mormon dealing with child rearing issues, we probably got something to talk to you about. And if you need help and need to talk to somebody, go to chat line, go to the chat line. Just go to recoverfromreligion.org and hit that chat button, or call us at 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT. That's the number. 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT. And and here's another cool thing, Shannon. We have just added an internet call. Pretty soon you'll be able to call us from anywhere on the planet. Right now you can call us from anywhere in North America. But we just added a United Kingdom phone number, and we're about to add an Australian phone number. We'll probably have South African phone number coming up soon. And we also are looking at an internet call system where you could literally call us free from anywhere on the planet if you've got a connection.
That's so cool.
we are so serious about trying to help anybody on this planet get rid of the disease of religion, the virus of religion.
Awesome. Well,
all right, so that's everything.
That's it. I'm going to put up an end screen card now, and we have to
Thanks.
I don't have music, so right now everybody's looking at an end screen while I just ramble incoherently. My audience is used to that though, because I'm the worst YouTuber in the world. Bye, guys. Help elevate the discourse.